We love using our TV trays, but they're just a little too short for our couch. How am I supposed to enjoy this snack when I'm all hunched over like this? So we're gonna fix that today by building a totally custom TV tray. And since this is a woodworking social media, it's gotta be a river table. I ordered a plastic mold off of Amazon and had nearly a gallon of epoxy lying around from a previous project. That side. Using this small slab of walnut I picked up from the local lumber yard, I set out to find the best section to make this river table TV tray. After staring at this V-shaped board like the caveman I am, I finally reasoned that I could just keep it parallel and it should be fine. So I stared at it for like 5 more minutes, then started marking it up. Grabbed my trusty circular saw and made the first cuts. With a few trims on the miter saw afterwards, they dropped right into the mold as expected. It was about this time that I started to think that the bark might be a possible weak point for the epoxy, and after a quick Google search, my suspicion was confirmed, so I needed to get that removed. There might be an easier way to do this, but I got this hammer, so. It turns out a chisel, screwdriver, or even a dull spoon would have been a better option. And I found out they make a tool for this, aptly named a debarking tool. But I digress. With the boards trimmed, it was time to seal up the mold to avoid wasting epoxy. While waiting on the silicone to dry, I used an online calculator to estimate how much epoxy I would need for this. It said just under a gallon, so I dumped a little over 3/4 of a gallon into this bucket and started mixing. As I started pouring it into the mold, I immediately recognized that the calculator was grossly incorrect, and I ended up with like a whole other board's worth of epoxy. Quickly, albeit off camera, I cut another piece of walnut for a smaller mold and poured the excess into it to prevent waste. Using a Harbor Freight special heat gun, I babysat the epoxy for the next couple hours, waving the heat gun over it to dissipate the bubbles as needed. I know most people use a torch for this, but I somehow managed to lose the nozzle for mine and didn't realize it until this moment. So, heat gun to the rescue. Since the temperatures were going to dip into the 20s overnight, once it had gelled nicely, I picked it up and moved it into a heated space. Regretfully, I didn't check on it after that, and the table I sat it on was not nearly as level as where I poured. Well, this turned out not great. Not great. I was not optimistic I could save it. That worked better than I thought it was going to. This is totally savable. This side looks great. I take back what I said. I'm very optimistic. With the top needing to cure for another day, I wanted to get started building the base. So I started by confirming the measurements with the actual usable area of the piece. We're gonna do 13 by 20. Based on that, I'm just assuming we're gonna have some waste on both sides, or all 4 sides. So I'm moving in just a bit from the original designs. And we're gonna start cutting some metal for the base that will be kind of cantilevered so that it will slide under the couch and over the knees to make it easy to stow away, and also, more comfortable to use regardless of what position you're sitting on the couch. With that design in mind, I donned some PPE and made some sparks. With the fiasco during my end table build, I decided I wanted to solve the how to weld this straight every time problem. So I found this ultra cool cast iron jig from Fireball Tools. This thing is going to save me so much frustration going forward. Since my welds often look like they were made with Play-Doh, I have to put in a little work with the grinder to clean things up. I don't remember when or how I lost the blade guard on this old grinder, but I do remember the sound it makes when it rips through gloves and into flesh.
Oh, Martha Fokker! Holy mother of pearl! I almost did it again. Woo, doggy. Just took the tip of my knuckle off and not to the bone like last time. So let's take a break.
Yes, you heard me correctly. In a moment of pain and shock, I said Martha Fokker. As in Pamela Martha Fokker from the 2004 hit comedy Meet the Fockers. And I think that's pretty hilarious. On a serious note, I got lucky here, and it's a reminder that I need to be always vigilant and extra safe in the workshop if I want to keep these fingers. Now let's get back to it.
If we just left this as is, it's not going to be strong enough because of the lever action out here, and it's going to bend real bad. But if you put just this little extra brace right here, and that's not straight, I'll straighten these out, but it makes a big difference. See how that's not moving hardly at all now? And so that's what we want.
With the supports welded in place, I cautiously used the grinder to do a final pass on all the joints to get them cleaned up. I was extra careful this time, but I've already ordered a replacement guard to prevent what happened earlier. I drilled and tapped the base so I could add adjustable feet. Then applied primer and paint to slick this thing up and get it ready for final assembly. While the primer and paint dried, I ran the top through the drum sander for what seemed like hours. But I was really pleased that this didn't turn out nearly as bad as I thought it would after the initial pour. I took the final measurements to square the top to the base, then ran it through the table saw and miter saw one last time. Then I moved over to the router to give it a 1/2 inch round over on all sides. I used 3 coats of Performance Finishes gloss, and it turned out really pretty. Once it dried, I got it attached to the base, and it was ready for dinner that night. All in all, I think that was a fun and successful day. I accomplished everything that I set out to do, avoided a few disasters, and learned a lot along the way. And hopefully you did too. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Check out the description for information about the materials, tools, and all the stuff that we used and discussed in the video, and also for links to my social medias, affiliate links for Amazon, and most importantly, my Patreon. We're just getting started over there, but we've got some great stuff coming down the pike, and when the time is right, I'd love your support. Thanks for watching. Now go build something cool.